Hello, and welcome to this episode of Hello Nintendo, where we will be talking about more Tuesday Tussle featuring Donkey Kong. We'll also be talking about our New Year's resolutions and whether or not we are thankful for those resolutions coming true, and our predictions for what Nintendo was gonna be. If you are our podcast listener, you may be familiar with the episode back in January that featured all of these probably crazy predictions. But for now, as always, joining me is Ketchup the Duck, aka Sam. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
And also Michael, aka Iwata Fan. How are you doing today?
Doing good. Happy to be here.
So, starting out with what have you been playing? Michael, what have you been playing recently?
Well, I went back to the indies finally, and I watched this YouTuber named Metal Jesus Rocks, and he reviews all sorts of games, old and new. Well, he recommended what he described as a Doom-style shooter for the Nintendo Switch, and it's called Immortal Redneck. It has kind of a silly theme to it. A redneck goes and visits Egypt and is dune buggying around the desert and dies, but is revived by some sort of mysterious ancient Egyptian creatures that look hieroglyphic-y. They're based on ancient Egyptian mythology, and they keep resurrecting him to go and fight in this pyramid where they just throw enemies at him and he climbs up this pyramid to try and reach the apex. And it's a skill tree game, so you just try over and over again and you earn points or coins to spend on upgrading your skills. And it's an interesting game. It's had me captive for 10 hours this week, which is the most I've probably played a single game in a single week in a few months. So it's had me busy.
Goodness, so I'm looking at the game right now, and the concept is pretty silly, but I like the skill tree. Now, I see that it has won a Best Game at MomoCon in Atlanta and Game Boss Zaragoza. Probably mispronounced that. And it has a 9 out of 10 on Steam. What would you rate it?
Honestly, it's very well made, and I would honestly at least give it a 9 out of 10. There's only very minor issues that I think if they just balanced a few enemies a bit more, it'd pretty much be the quintessential experience for what it is.
Also, I see there is a special mode for streamers, and I know you have been getting into streaming a little bit. Do you plan on streaming this game at all?
I was thinking about that actually, because there's not a lot of people who stream indie games so much, and since I play them so often, I really thought maybe I should showcase my short attention span with games and just like do this variety hour or so of of indie games.
I think I would encourage you to do that. Sam, what have you been playing?
I finished Batman Arkham City. I really loved it. I still got some of the bonus modes to do, and I'm chipping away at them slowly. But that game is basically done now. And then I got really into Metroid: Samus Returns, which I wanted to play back when it was our game of the month for Game Club. I'm just getting around to it now, and I see the first challenge. One of the challenges is to get all 6 endings. I thought I'd polish this off in a couple hours. I'm not inexperienced with Metroid games, but it's taken up a good chunk of my time actually. I think part of it was it took me a while to get back into the form factor of the 3DS after I hadn't played it since the beginning of the year. It does cramp your hands a little bit if you're not used to it. But it's a really nice game. It's really atmospheric. It's a nice little swan song for the 3DS.
I've been wanting to play Metroid Samus Returns for a long time, but there's always some other game coming up. But Batman Arkham City, what was your favorite moment in the game?
Oh, there's a excellent boss fight. One of the best boss fights I played in that sort of game, to be honest. Boss fights always tend to be a bit weird and a bit... Because Batman... I think I talked about this last week. Batman's quite an easy game. He gets through quite a lot of enemies really easy, and so he should, because he's not Superman, but he is a superhero, and he should be able to beat up a load of random thugs quite easily. And that's fun. you don't. Not every game has to be challenging all the time, and then you get these boss fights, and sometimes they're just a bit too stupid. Especially in Batman, it has this sort of um, weird relationship with: do we want this to get too silly? Do we want this to get too like monstrous, or do we want this to just be regular people who just had a bad day and went insane? I think was that was Joker say something like that? He's just one bad day away from ending up like him.
I'm going to trust you on that. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not.
No, I don't know. I think there's some Batman fans screaming at screaming at me for messing up their favorite quote. But so you get these stupid bosses, but Mr. Freeze, who I always thought was quite a stupid character, from clips I've seen of Arnold Schwarzenegger playing him. He's a really fun boss fight. He's really smart, and you have to think of like 11 different ways, I think, to take him down. You got to use basically all the skills you've learned to overcome this boss. It's not a weird genre shift where you're doing different things than you'd normally. You don't just have to dodge him 3 times and attack 3 times and then he repeats. It's clever, it's different, it's unique, and it's genuinely fun instead of something just to break up the action. It genuinely adds to it. So that's one of the best boss fights I've ever played, and it's quite an old game now. So we should be doing better, guys.
I love a good boss fight, and that really can make a game. Speaking of boss fights, and I have been playing absolutely nothing lately, so that's my life. Speaking of boss fights, though, we're going to go right into a quick DK version of Tuesday Tussle. A bunch of, maybe my favorite bracket because I love the Donkey Kong series. So this one was really hard. That being said, there are a lot of good boss fights in these games. So I'm just going to go down the list real quick of the different games, actually, and start the non-Donkey Kong ones, and then get into the Donkey Kong battle. So the first one is Balloon Fight versus Banjo-Kazooie. I think I know which one is going to win. I think Banjo is going to win. Am I wrong in saying that?
I think Banjo will wipe the floor with Balloon Fight. And
Yeah.
there's nothing against Balloon Fight. It's a cute little game. And Balloon Fight should come to mobile, actually. That'd be really fun. But Banjo is one of the best games on N64. For a long time, it was my favorite platformer. It's a beautiful little game. How far have you got in Banjo now? Have you got any further?
I have not gotten it any further for reasons.
You haven't got that jiggy behind the propellers yet?
I haven't even tried. I'll explain off air. The next game is Bayonetta versus Bayonetta 2. These are 2 games I have not played. I know Jessie the Lion, Sarah, last time she was on, she's been playing Bayonetta. So I've been able to see a little bit of that, but I never played Bayonetta 2. Did the sequel live up to the original?
I remember it being... I have not played these games either, but I remember the sequel being considered better than the original. So, and then Bayonetta 3 even, I'm sure, is even considered better than that. So I think it's like every game is better than the last one kind of reputation. So that's why I kind of took a blind vote for Bayonetta 2 personally. I hope I honored the fans' sentiment in that respect.
I voted for Bayonetta 2 because it's a Nintendo exclusive, and as we're voting for the best Nintendo game, I thought Bayonetta 2 was a better Nintendo game than Bayonetta 1. That was my logic. But I haven't actually played either of them, so I shouldn't have voted at all, really. Yeah, I should have abstained, but I didn't. Someone left an interesting comment. Monkey Boy Inc. commented, Bayo 2 just feels so much better to play, controls are customizable, feels so much smoother, unlike Bayo 1, which forces a questionable control scheme, and so much of the fat that dragged Bayo 1 down has been trimmed, On the other hand, I think that mechanically Bayonetta 1's combat is just plain superior. Attacks that should be stronger are stronger, and the Umbran Climax mechanic in Bayonetta 2 changes the flow of combat from find safe opportunities to unleash the strong attacks to wait until your meter is full, then attack a lot.
Yeah, this is a debate that I should have abstained for, and I don't even remember which one I voted for, because I click a lot of buttons. Bomberman versus Donkey Kong Jr.
That one's easy. I think they're both bad games, but this is the NES. This is the Game Boy Advance port of the NES version of Bomberman, and two-player Bomberman isn't real Bomberman. You need at least 4 players. Even better if you have more.
I think I was going to make a joke about Bomberman just bombing both of these games, so we'll move right along. Donkey Kong versus Donkey Kong. I clicked Donkey Kong.
This is the Famicom Disk System version of Donkey Kong versus completely different game, Donkey Kong for the Game Boy, which is not just a port of the arcade game. This has like 90 different levels, and this is when Mario. This is the first game where Mario went from not just maybe Super Mario 64 was the first one. I'm not quite sure on the timings, but this is definitely the first 2D game where Mario was more than just someone who jumped, but he was an acrobat. He had his side flips, he had his ground pounds, he was swinging around on poles, he was doing all sorts of acrobatics. It's also got a bit of a puzzle game. It's basically the first Mario versus Donkey Kong.
I was playing it last night for the first time, actually, because the Tussle Tuesday had caused a lot of people to recommend it to me, namely one of our moderators, and so I did it. And wow, this is such a good game, Donkey Kong for the Game Boy. That is, I can't believe how good it is. I wish I had played this as a kid because I would have loved it. So I can't wait to go through all the rest of it. I've only done level 1-1 through level 1-4, so there's plenty left to do. But yeah, I can't believe how good this game is and how unknown it probably is. Wow, it was awesome.
Yeah, it doesn't help it's called Donkey Kong. Like,
yeah,
if it had its own name, then maybe people would remember it more.
Yeah, they should have said Donkey Kong Pocket or something, or Donkey Kong Adventure, maybe.
I actually got to play this as a kid. It was when I got my Game Boy, I bought it from my cousin for $8. And when I got it, this was one of the games he let me borrow. I don't remember. I got to the world with the airplane before I got stuck. I was very young, but it was good. It was a lot of fun from what I remember. Next up, we have Donkey Kong Country SNES versus Game Boy Advanced. Now, I voted the SNES version because of tradition, and I probably should have voted the GBA version because it's better. And I like the Game Boy Advance ports of all the Donkey Kongs because it's easier to see, in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that?
I voted the SNES one simply because I think the soundtrack's a lot better on SNES than on the Game Boy Advance. I think if I did play it when it came out and I did enjoy it on the Game Boy Advance, but I think if I played it now, I'd be one of these purists who's like, no, I need to play the proper version on the SNES.
Next up, we have Donkey Kong Country 2 versus Donkey Kong Country 3. Donkey Kong Country 2 is one of the best games of all time.
Yeah, I love Donkey Kong Country 3!
Donkey Kong Country 3 is good.
I love riding around in my boat, and I like the puzzles between making use of tossing Dixie and Kiddy around. And yeah, I don't love Kiddy, and I think it should have been Dixie and Donkey Kong teaming up to save Diddy, which would have made the trilogy complete in a better way, in my opinion. But I'd like the atmosphere. And also, I haven't played Donkey Kong Country 2.
oh my goodness. I love the level design in Donkey Kong Country 2 is beautiful. It's the way that they teach you something, and then once you've learned it, they throw a little trick in there, and then you die and you have to learn something new in the game. The very level design taunts you. It's such a love-hate relationship with the game that it makes you fall in love with it by the end because it's so rewarding. Donkey Kong Country 3 GBA versus DK64. DK64 isn't good.
Yeah, I don't like Donkey Kong 64 either, but I voted for it. I just think at least it's new, not a port.
Well, I think you all know what I'm about to say, and that is Donkey Kong 64 is magnificent. I am one of the few people in the world, it feels like, who actually likes 3D platformers better than 2D platformers, which, that's not to denigrate 2D platformers in the least. I just have a preference. And Donkey Kong 64 is like as much of everything I love about 3D platformers as possible built into the game. And everyone hates it because it's so large. But really, you only have to collect maybe half the things, which is mindless and effortless, in order to complete the game. And then they left the other 50% of the game for people like myself who just want to keep going back. So I'm going to have to go with Donkey Kong 64. I think it's pretty much the pinnacle of Rare's 3D platforming era.
I've tried to get into DK64 too many times. And the camera, every time the camera at the beginning just reminds me there's something else that I could be playing.
No, it's true, but to be fair, the camera is at its worst at the beginning, and then after that, I don't think it's really much of an issue. But I could be wrong, I suppose. That said, I'm fairly confident Donkey Kong 64 should be considered the best. I don't think it necessarily will be, because Donkey Kong Country has quite the reputation, and it's extremely hard to surpass it.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see how what people think of DK64 compared to some of the other just platforming. Well, I think I know what most people would think, but I'd like to hear more DK64 supporters. Next up, we have Tropical Freeze versus Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and this is the non-funky version of Tropical Freeze. This is the Wii U version.
I love Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and I know Tropical Freeze is going to thrash it because nobody played Donkey Kong Jungle Beat, and Tropical Freeze has a reputation as like an unsung hero of the Wii U. Until its Switch re-release. The Jungle Beat is such a unique, beautiful game, so unlike any of the other Donkey Kong games. Like, Tropical Freeze may or may not be the best Donkey Kong Country game, but there isn't another Donkey Kong game like Jungle Beat at all. You play with the Donkey Konga bongos, and it gives Donkey Kong and you this like really physical connection. It's a really tiring game. Like, you're always exhausted at the end of the level. Donkey Kong is more violent than in any other Donkey Kong games. There's a lot of punching and wailing and smacking on enemies. And it's also got this really fun combo system where you can basically get to the end of the level within the flow of a single combo where you're punching or bouncing or rebounding off of something in the environment. It's the first game from the team that went on to do Super Mario Galaxy and Super Mario Galaxy 2 and Super Mario 3D World. So that should give you some idea of, even if you haven't played it, of like caliber of the level design in this game.
So there's actually a podcast back in August where I said that I was going to go out. Sarah and I said that we were going to go out and buy Donkey Kong Jungle Beat because this may be the unreleased podcast. There is a Donkey Kong podcast sitting in the editing bay. But, so we went to two different stores. We never bought it because by the time we were going to buy it, people hold these Donkey Kongas for hostage. It was going to cost $20 for a pair of bongos plus $15 for the game. It was, and as much as I want to play that, I don't have the free money to just drop like that. But like, please, if you hold if you own a game store and you're holding these congas for hostage, please stop. That's just my plea for today. That's my soapbox. Okay, I'll get off that. Probably only to get back on it because next up is Conga 2 versus Dr. Oh, no, it's versus Dr. Mario. I actually don't know what that one is, so I voted for Conga 2.
Versus Nintendo had a whole run of arcade adaptations of their NES games. So you've seen some of them get re-released on the Switch recently. We've had versus Mario Brothers and versus Super Mario Brothers. I think we've had versus Wrecking Crew and versus Ice Climber. And versus Dr. Mario is a version of Dr. Mario for the NES, which has been adapted to arcade. And in the arcades, they would have the two cabinets back to back, and I believe, I'm not sure, that there was some sort of camera above this, so you would see the reaction of the opponent on the other side, but you couldn't actually see what they were doing on their screen. You could just see their reactions when they were impacted by your chain or your attack or whatever. So it's it's basically a version of Dr. Mario, but that's what the versus series.
I think for this one, I voted for Conga 2 just because, versus Dr. Mario is probably a great port, but Conga 2 is seemingly a much more unique game to me, and I just thought, well, with all the other Dr. Mario iterations probably floating through the tussle, well, we should give Conga 2 a little bit of a push forward just to see how it measures up against whatever games might come next.
Yeah, I'd agree with that sentiment.
I don't see either Conga 2 or versus Dr. Mario beating whatever game it goes up against next, to be honest. So,
well, the brackets better than we do, but I imagine it would be very difficult. They're both they're side games, both of them, I guess you could say.
Sure.
So, moving on, I'm going to hand it off to Sam because she went back and listened to the January podcast where we talked about our resolutions, and this will probably be released the day before Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody in the United States, by the way. We are going to talk about what we thought back in January. This is going to be brutal, but it should be fun to listen to. Sam, go ahead and make us look silly.
Yeah, so I went back and listened to the first episodes of the year, and I thought it'd be fun because we talked about what it was that we wanted to achieve in our gaming career, so to speak, in 2018, and we also talked about what our predictions for the Switch would be in 2018. So I thought I'd start with you, Alex. Do you remember what your resolution was?
No, I don't.
You said that you were going to, because you beat the Fire Emblem series in 2017, you'd introduce yourself to that, and then you played a few games in the series after being introduced to it. And you wanted to do the same with a new series in 2018. So you said you were going to beat Metroid Prime 1, 2, and 3 in time for a Metroid Prime 4 release in holiday 2018.
That is the worst resolution and the worst prediction ever on this podcast. Oh my gosh, that is awful. Yeah, that flopped hard. So, but there is a reason behind it. So, well, first, let's just make fun of me for thinking that Metroid was a year out. Like, it's probably holiday 2019. Honestly, I wouldn't even be shocked at this point if Metroid Prime 4 is spring 2020. Because Nintendo just kind of took this Square Enix thing and was like, we're going to put the number 4 up. We're going to show that it's in development. That's it. It's in development. We have no idea how long or how long it's been in development or anything about it. And it's been over a year now. So yeah, that was just silly of me to expect that. Anyway, so I never actually owned a Wii U or the versions of Metroid for the GameCube. So what I was doing was I was going to emulate them on the Dolphin. I hate emulators though, and I quickly, about 5-7 hours into the first Metroid, I gave up because I was spending more time trying to configure my keyboard, getting jumbled up on keyboard buttons, having the game, and I have a decent laptop. It can run Overwatch. It can run a lot of different games, Hat in Time. I just have no idea how to optimize an emulator. I'm completely illiterate. I read through the Dolphin guides. I realized that Dolphin is really good, and I realized that I am an idiot for not realizing how to work Dolphin. So yeah, that resolution flopped hard. I not only did not beat those, I gave up 7 hours and decided not to fight with my computer.
I don't blame you. It's so hard sometimes to just enjoy games when you're playing on PC because every PC is different. But at least with game systems, it's all the same. So I can see why you would have given up just configuring something every other time you play or something like that.
Yeah, and I ended up beating. We can talk about this in December, but I ended up beating other good games this year.
Did you choose another series to introduce to?
No, I actually started going off of my sister's recommendations. Donkey Kong Country 2, and at Christmas, last Christmas, she handed it to me and was like, beat this. I'm like, I hate this game. And as I just said, it is now one of my top 5 favorite games of all time because I was terrible at it as a kid. So I beat that, and then I beat Kirby Squeak Squad. I beat Kirby Squeak Squad. I quote unquote beat Monster Hunter Generations for the 3DS, and I say quote unquote because I got to the point where I it's really hard to do without other people. And then let's see, what other games did I beat? But Hat in Time. I am gonna beat Banjo Kazooie, I hope. I'm working my way through Octopath Traveler still, but I want it to
Yeah,
be.
that's it. You were playing that one.
Yeah, and I took a break from that to beat Banjo first. I thought I was gonna be, but life happened, and I just haven't been playing video games.
As well as your resolution, you made 3 predictions that you thought would happen in a Switch firmware update this year. You made 3 predictions, and one of them came true. Do you remember any of your predictions?
I'm gonna say one was like a streaming service was gonna come to the Switch.
Yeah,
Was
you thought Twitch would be integrated into a Switch firmware update.
Okay? I'm a little bit surprised that hasn't happened yet, but what were my other ones?
So you did predict that YouTube would happen. I don't think any of us thought it would be this long to get YouTube on the Switch. And you also wanted a way to invite friends into the game that you were currently playing. A better way of inviting friends to play with you, basically.
Yeah, so the YouTube one, we can say I was right about that, but it happened. I thought it was going to be at like by E3,
Yeah.
and it shocked me how long it took.
I genuinely thought in the beginning of the year when the release schedule was all remakes of Wii U games. I know that's simplifying it, but there wasn't a huge lot of excitement. I thought Nintendo would mask it with some Netflix drops, YouTube, different streaming services. That didn't happen. YouTube came out almost a year after Hulu, which led a lot of people to believe there was some sort of deal struck, which of course doesn't quite gel with what Nintendo said, but who knows what degree of truth they were using or whether they even knew what they were talking about when they made those statements.
There's always stuff going on in the background. And then my other one was that a better way to invite friends, and I get that didn't happen. It's still I guess because I was probably just not gonna ever happen. I guess there's gonna be individual ways when we're playing Smash Brothers to connect via voice, but it's probably gonna be that's I think the game that we're gonna have to wait to see. I don't know. I haven't even bought online yet because I haven't had the time to use it. So yeah, I was wrong about that one as well.
We're near the end of 2018. I wonder, do you think either of those two things will happen in 2019, or if you change your mind, do you think they won't happen at all?
I still think Twitch or a streaming service does come. I don't know, because Nintendo is so... They clamp down on the material that you can share so much that I think they like the hold that they have on like the YouTube collaborator, whatever that collaborator thing is called, that they're happy with the way it is because they like to have strict control. So did a streaming service ever come to the Wii U?
I don't think so. I don't know. I don't want to say for sure, but I don't think so.
I don't think it did. So I'm going to recant that one. And then party chat, it's not coming. It's not coming.
Yeah, there's no way. I think Nintendo has shown all their cards with voice chat, and it's kind of just a hopeless situation. You can use their app if you want, or you can be sane and use Discord, and that's the end of it. So I think we're just gonna have to let that one go if we want to enjoy this era.
It's quite surprising how my perception of Nintendo has changed quite dramatically this year. I thought they really not just got their groove back, but I thought they were really in touch with the current gaming market, at least the audience that is on Reddit, that sort of market. But no, they are still a family company at heart. And these sort of online services don't come into their plan at all. They don't see a need to do them. Which is admirable in a way, really disappointing, but props to them. Mike, you weren't on that podcast, but there was a thread where Mike was asking for our resolutions. Do you remember what your resolution was?
I haven't the slightest idea.
In January, do you remember you were playing Pikmin, Rhyme, Pokemon Ultra Sun, and Animal Crossing Pocket Camp all at the same time?
Yes, I remember that.
So your resolution was that you would only play one game at a time. You wouldn't start a new game until you're done with the old one. Maybe allowing yourself a side game in addition to one story game. So I was wondering how well you've done with that resolution.
Well, first of all, I mean, Pocket Camp you don't really beat, but I left it in my mind unfinished. I didn't do everything I thought I should have. So out of that list of the list of games you just gave me, I have only completed Rhyme, and that is a consequence of playing.
You didn't even beat Pikmin?
Not even Pikmin, not Pokemon Ultra Sun. I don't know what's wrong with me. I have a serious issue. And I was playing Pikmin, the port to the Wii U, the Virtual Console release, and I was playing it with, I think I was using the Wiimote, or I was.
Yeah, if it's the new Play control, you're using the Wii remote. So yeah, I think I like that control scheme. I think it's better than the GameCube controller.
Yeah, I thought so too, and I was.
But not enough to finish it.
Yeah, that would be helpful, wouldn't it? I don't know what the deal is, but I'm doing that even right now. I'm like playing The Division and Steep and Immortal Redneck and who knows what else. I'm going to be playing Pokemon when it releases. Let's Go Pikachu. I'm going to be playing that at midnight. So I just have a horrible attention span, obviously, and it's costing me because I'm not really finishing any games.
Do you think that habit's going to change anytime soon?
You know, it might. On the other hand, I did complete 3 Grand Theft Autos from start to finish, and all of those are very large games. Something like the way I play, I spent 50 plus hours on each. So miraculously, I did complete some games for one efficient month or two of the year. I don't think this habit's going to change if I'm honest, but I'm going to try anyway. So I think I know what my New Year's resolution is going to be for gaming.
So again, you weren't on the podcast and there wasn't a topic for this, but do you think you could cast your mind back? What did you think 2018 looked like for the Switch hardware? What sort of firmware updates were you expecting?
To be honest, I wasn't really expecting anything. I certainly didn't expect there to be any sort of streaming service whatsoever. when Nintendo said they were going to give out a few NES and SNES games at a time, I believed that would start in 2019. So they were early on that. I definitely did not plan on Netflix. And this is just because I'm used to Nintendo being Nintendo. And the Wii U and the 3DS all had very late, I think rather late ports of these applications. And sometimes they wouldn't really work very well. And the support for them would sometimes be on and off. And so I just was not planning on that for the Switch. I thought Nintendo was really going to stick to their guns and say, we're not going to release any more streaming apps because this is a gaming console, not for videos. So I'm surprised that they released YouTube at all. And now I sort of expect Netflix will come maybe next year sometime. If the pattern continues, it will be next October or November rather.
I gotta say, I didn't think that there was going to be that much firmware updates. I did think they would prioritize. The Switch is got to boot up fast. You've got to get straight into your game. You've got to be able to find what you want to do and get into it straight away. They don't want to clog that with some menu music that has to load, or some a back end system for friends stuff, which would be nice, but I don't think we'll get it because all this stuff will weigh down, bloat the system and make it run less efficiently. But I was expecting an overhaul of the eShop, to be honest. I can't imagine that it's a pleasure. It's not a pleasurable browsing experience on the eShop, and that doesn't really matter to me. When I go on the eShop, I know what I'm gonna get, and I go in and I get it and I get out. But for the sort of people who browse the sales and the special offers and the new queues looking for something to scratch that itch, the eShop is really underwhelming, and it's weird that Nintendo hasn't put the time into making that a better experience.
It's a pretty color.
It's nice. It does load
like the
quicker than
orange.
the eShop on the Wii U, which is nice. But
Yeah, I'm surprised they haven't come up with more organization schemes, to be honest, because, for instance, we were just talking about versus Dr. Mario. I wish there was some sort of category to find those really quickly, find all the arcade remakes.
yeah, where's all the arcade archives? Like, they should have a page. Maybe they do, but how do you find it? If it does, I don't know. My resolution was I wasn't going to buy any Switch games until I beat the Switch games I'd bought in 2017. I got a good 10 games for the Switch. And I had Bayonetta 1 and 2 pre-ordered before January, so that didn't count. But I haven't beat any Switch games this year. I played a bunch of 3DS games this year. And I've received Mario Tennis Aces this year. I didn't buy it, but I can't avoid Smash. There's no, so I don't think I'm even going to beat one Switch game before Smash comes out. It's a bit disappointing. I feel really guilty for not using my Switch very much this year because I played it a lot in 2017. But this year I've just been going back and beating some games I missed and enjoying my backlog. And I haven't felt much compulsion to play the Xbox One or PS4 either. I don't have any of them. Red Dead Redemption seems to be getting a bit of a mixed reception. That was the game that could have pushed me over to buy a next-gen console. But yeah, I feel bad I haven't beat Mario Odyssey yet. That's coming soon. I gotta play Mario Odyssey.
I think you have to. I haven't, but I don't really care for it. So
yeah, you were talking in that podcast that I was listening to research that you chose Hat in Time over Mario Odyssey Game of the Year.
Yes.
I did. Does that still hold up for you? You still stick to that?
Yes, very much so. Hat in Time is one of my favorite games. It was my Game of the Year last year, and it's good. And with the update, the DLC, it has so much content now you have to go. It just pretty much doubled the game with their latest DLC update. It's good.
And if it comes to Switch by the end of this year, then it could be your game of the year this year as well.
I can that's cheating, but it's acceptable cheating. Well, thank you very much for joining us on this edition of Hello Nintendo. Maybe you can send us a message just commenting on what your New Year's resolutions were and what you thought Nintendo was going to look like this year. As we head into Thanksgiving, which will be tomorrow based on the release day, thank you very much, Sam and Michael. I truly mean this. Thank you for being such good friends and having a ton of fun on this podcast. For everybody else, have a happy Thanksgiving, even if you're not in the United States. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Celebrate it. Give your family a high five or something for me. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll be back next time for... Hey, it's gonna be Christmas time. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And a Happy New Year. Even though we got more episodes left.
I'm already listening to Christmas music.